And that is the reason why Suzuki is so successful, Honda is so successful, Toyota is so successful, and GM and Ford could not, because somewhere they implanted their European style, or let's say Germans.
Hello, and welcome to the Auto Ethnographer. I'm John Steck, your host on this journey. We travel the globe to bring you stories about culture and the global automotive industry. Fasten your seatbelt and let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Auto Ethnographer. Today, we travel to India and have a great conversation with Dr. Deb Mukherji. He has a long and successful history in the Indian automotive industry, both at the OEM or automaker level, as well as at some of the larger suppliers in India. More recently, he was the managing director of Omega Seiki Mobility, a startup which is focused on electric three-wheelers and last-mile mobility. Here, he set up several manufacturing sites as well as a robust 200 dealer sales network. Prior to this, he worked in a wide array of manufacturing related positions with either the OEM or suppliers to well-known brands such as Honda, Maruti, Hyundai, and Hindustan. Currently, he's the founder and the CEO of ADM Prime Consulting in Gurugram near New Delhi, India. ADM also has offices in Japan and South Korea. Dr. Deb, welcome to this episode of the Auto Ethnographer.
Thank you very much, John. It's a pleasure to talk to you on your podcast, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome. There's a lot happening in India in the automotive industry, and
Yeah.
particularly you see a lot happening in electrification. Given
Yes.
that India is the nation on the planet with the largest population,
Mm.
I think it's certainly something that we should focus on and talk about. But at the same time, it's a little bit mysterious. There's been, let's say, a lack of success from some of the international automakers that have gone there. And I wanted to peel back the onion layer by layer a little bit to talk to you about, what can they do better? What can be the formula to success? But first, before we get into that, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your background in your words.
Yeah. Thank you, John. You summarized my background very nicely, and thank you so much for talking so nice things about me. I am a mechanical engineer by education, and then after my engineering graduation, I did my master's in engineering, and then eventually I shifted to more on the economics side, and my PhD was researching the economic side of the Indian auto components industry way back in the early 2000, when we had a resurgent China, and in the industry there was a lot of apprehension and concern that Chinese companies are going to kind of steamroll Indian companies, and Indian industry will not be able to compete with their prowess, with their firepower, with the economic power, and also rapidly evolving technology. So that's an area where I worked on during my frequent travels to China. I watched them grow and sort of become what they are today after a couple of decades. But those were the days when, in the industry, in the Indian industry, we were trying to figure out how Indian industry can compete with China. So I worked on the component side of the Indian automotive industry. I worked with Japanese companies. I worked with Korean companies, and also some of the large Indian companies, conglomerates. I mean, today they are huge. Those were the days when they were evolving. Maruti had just come. Maruti Suzuki, as you know, is the largest auto car maker in India. So some of
Mhm.
the tier ones, were evolving very rapidly in terms of scale and size. And I was fortunate to work in those companies. And then finally in 2010, I set out on my own with my own consulting and business advisory company, ADM Prime Consulting. And we mainly work with the foreign companies who wish to come to India, who wish to do business here, and we kind of become the bridge between them and the Indian market. And as you rightly said, Indian market is a mix of enormous opportunities and possibilities, as well as challenges. So these challenges could be uh, of wide variety, and this is where uh, we help these companies, sort out the issues on the ground, whether these are regulatory side of it, understanding the Indian ecosystem, then coming to the business. We do the market research, then we also work with them on the supply chain side, human resource side, which is in my opinion, is the most important link in this whole value chain. So we kind of offer a full package, and in some cases we do work with our clients for a fundraise and raising money as well. So most of my clients are either European, German, or British companies, and several of them are Japanese companies. Through my relationship with the Honda Group and Suzuki, uh, these are the companies who we have worked with, and as well as some Korean companies. So that's in short, what we do currently. And I see, as I said, there are huge opportunities which India offers today, and we'll talk about it more in detail uh, during the course of this discussion. But I see that the companies, the foreign companies who wish to come here and do business, they need to understand quite a few things, or quite a few aspects of the Indian of India, and this is where my company and my team helps, and we help these companies, these clients, to settle down in India and do business here.
I definitely am having this conversation today with the right expert in the field.
Thank you, Jan.
Let's start
Yeah.
maybe looking at the big picture for
Mm.
the Indian market as far as the auto industry is concerned. Can you frame out a little bit the scope and the size of the market, and just generally how it's structured? You have some manufacturers, of course. You have domestic brands. You have some foreign players who are either producing locally or purely operating as importers. Maybe you can frame
Yeah,
that out a little bit and give us some scope on what the Indian market looks like.
yeah, Jan. Indian automotive market is a very well established market, and we have a very mature market and also very rapidly growing market. So, in terms of just to give you an idea of what we have here, in terms of passenger car manufacturing, we do close to about 3.5 million vehicles annually, and that puts us number four in terms of global market size. Then, in terms of, India is a huge two-wheeler and a three-wheeler market, because a large part of India um, lives in rural areas and also semi-urban areas where mass transportation may not be so well developed. So people tend to use their own two-wheelers, the scooters and the motorbikes in this part of the world. So in two-wheelers, we last year we did 20. 3 million two-wheelers. It's a mix of scooters and motorcycles. So out of 23 in domestic market, we sold about 19 million, and roughly about 4 million were export from here. So that's a gigantic market of 20 odd million vehicles annually. And out of this 20 million domestic market, about 14 million are motorbikes, and about 6 million are the scooters. So that's the kind of product mix. Coming to three wheelers, we do roughly about a million plus three wheelers annually. So that's again a very large market, as you can imagine. uh, Commercial vehicles, and these are a mix of passenger, the rickshaw that we call here, carrying the passengers, as well as the cargo delivery vehicles. They carry typically a payload of about 500 to 600 kilo. So that's the kind of three wheelers that we have here in both passenger as well as the cargo categories. Then coming to the bigger trucks, so we have the small pickup trucks, then we have the light commercial vehicle, and then the heavy commercial vehicle, the bigger trucks. So overall, the market is about 1 million trucks per year. So that's the kind of vehicles we produce and sell in India. And almost 50% of this market is the small pickup trucks, typically about 1 to 1.5 ton payload. So that's the kind of load they carry, because our roads are narrow, and many times the road infrastructure is not so well developed. So that's where these smaller vehicles can navigate and deliver the cargo as well as passengers. So that's the kind of market we have for trucks. So two wheelers, three wheelers, cars, and trucks. So this is the full sort of package that we have, and we are growing very, very aggressively. And electrification is also happening in a very big way in this entire industry. So overall, if you talk about the economic side of it, so the total market is close to about 200 billion US dollars, and we are expected to double it in 5 years. So by 2030, we are expected to become about 400 to 450 billion US dollars of Indian automotive industry. So that gives you an idea of the Indian market, and the various form factors that we have here.
This is a incredibly sizable industry, and certainly very diversified between different
Yeah,
vehicle types, which you don't actually find in many of the other markets, major automotive production markets. You
yeah,
typically obviously don't have so many two wheelers and three wheelers in production in those markets.
right.
So very, very diversified. If I want to loop it back for a second to what you had studied earlier on with the Chinese footprint and their capabilities, what role within all of this do the Chinese play so far? Are there uh, Chinese EV production companies already in India today?
Yeah, John, it's a very interesting question. China is a massive automotive force today, and they are, and particularly in the new age automotive industry, which is largely dominated by EVs today. China is a giant, and the way they are churning out, their new models in less than a year, bringing out new models, new features, and all those technology vehicles. It's incredible to really see what China has achieved in last decade or so, led by the likes of BYD and Neo, Xiaomi, Shepang, etc. So it's a massive force to reckon with, and giving a run for the money to the established big giants like GM, Ford, VW, etc. We know the story of most of these guys having a huge problem. closing down factories in China, whereas Chinese companies continue to expand and put massive investments. Coming to India, there is a different story here. Essentially, because India and China have had a lot of political issues, and post the military conflict that we have in the early 60s, India and China have never had a very cordial relationship, to say. And recently also there were some border skirmishes. Because of that, the Indian population, the sentiment is not really very hospitable towards China. And Indian government, post that military issue about 5 years ago, they came up with a new law, or a rule, wherein the border touching countries, the countries which touch India's borders physically, they need special permission from Indian government to make investments or set up businesses in India. So, I mean, this rule was brought in essentially to curtail Chinese activities in India, because Chinese companies like Xiaomi, etc., are very higher, are very active in the Indian market in the cell phone and consumer durables space, because they can churn out very competitive products, cell phones, and whether it is a microwave oven or a refrigerator and stuff like that. uh, Coming to the automotive industry, so because of this rule, Chinese companies are not able to invest or enter India. So it's a kind of you can say it's a kind of a protection that the Indian government provided to the Indian industry. There is no restriction on the normal trade. You can import or export materials, parts, machinery, etc. There is absolutely no problem. But when it comes to putting money here, investment here, then there is a problem. So it's a kind of a restriction, trade restriction that the government has put in on Chinese companies, and because of that, Chinese companies are not able to enter India, except company like MG, which is a part of the SAIC, Psych China, and they acquired the Hindustan Motors facility, which was again acquired by GM, and they bought it over from GM. And but it's a small facility. I think they do close to about probably about 50,000 odd SUVs, which are EVs. So other than that, in the automotive space, there is no Chinese OEM here. There are a few Chinese JVs or technical agreements which exist with Chinese companies and Indian partners, and they continue to do business in the Indian component side, or auto component side. But in the OEM side, companies like Photon, for example, a Chinese big truck company, they came to India. They also acquired some assets here long back, I think probably around 10, 12 years ago, but they could not put up a factory here because of the ruling that I mentioned to you. So overall, yeah, it would be right to say that there is a protection as far as China is concerned for the industry. And most of the if you take the car segment, it's hugely dominated by Maruti's Suzuki, as you know, is a Japanese company. And even after 50 years they have been here, today they still control about 42-43% of the market, which is very significant. And number two is the Koreans, the Hyundai and Kia. So combined, they have close to about 22% of market. So number one and number two control about 65% of the market. So, and then, the remaining 35 is split between Indian OEMs like Mahindra, Tata, and others, Honda, Toyota, Nissan, etc. So that's the overall landscape of the Indian industry, and I don't see that changing much as far as Chinese are concerned in near future. I think the that I mean that gives a opportunity to the Indian OEMs and the Japanese and the Koreans here to expand their market, and it's kind of a bit of a protection as far as China goes.
I was not aware of that particular method
Yeah.
of protection that especially specific to border countries
Yes.
sharing a border with India. But it's fascinating. It seems to be quite effective, and that has addressed that issue that you studied 25 years ago. Why don't we move on a little bit for the companies that do want to tackle the Indian market and to talk a little bit about the challenges that they face and get into a little bit more detail there. So in this case, we're talking about countries or companies from countries that don't share a border with India. There's a whole litany, I think, of different challenges that they would have to face, and I think you've touched a little bit on some of them, and maybe we can dive in just a little bit deeper. The first one that you had mentioned already is some of the regulatory complexity that they face. Could you highlight that a little bit?
Yeah, John, I would, when you talk about challenges or being faced by a new entrant into India, I mean, it's pretty natural for any foreign country to have some sort of challenge when you enter a new country. I mean, it's same for an Indian company probably trying to do business in Europe or US. It's pretty natural. But having said that, for the benefit of the companies who are looking at India, because it's a huge market, as I said, and a very, very robust economy growing close to 8% year on year. And we are already number four in terms of GDP. We just beat Japan. And now there are projections India will become top three economy, now beating probably Germany in the next 4 to 5 years. So it's a $4 trillion economy today, and expectations are by 2030 will be somewhere within the sight of 8 to 9 million trillion US dollars. So obviously, it's a massive market and very, very vibrant democracy, unlike some other countries where the state has very tight controls. So the issues, I would sort of segment them into one is the regulatory or the government or the bureaucratic side of it. Then the technology side of it. Number three would be the economic issues or challenges, and number four would be the cultural and the human resource related, challenges. So coming to the regulatory, yes, India has had a legacy of a huge amount of bureaucratic procedures and processes which we largely inherited from British. When we were ruled for almost 300 years by British. So when once they left, so they left with a lot of baggage, and it took a long time for India to wriggle out of those bureaucratic procedures and processes and all those legal laws, etc., etc. So but of late, starting in 1991, when India opened the economy to foreign investors and the companies who want to come and invest here. Before that, it was a closed economy; foreign companies were not allowed to invest, etc. So 1991 was the first one when we opened the doors and the economy started growing, and foreign companies came, and all the foreign investments started happening. So since then, India has moved quite a lot, and we have had subsequent decades. We have had a lot of sort of cleaning up of these procedures and a lot of laws which were largely irrelevant uh, in the modern way of doing business got obsolete. So today, I would say, barring few areas, the company, the business setup, and doing business, even repatriation of money back to your parent country is 100% allowed, subject to all the taxation, etc. So it's a very, very sort of, I would say, an open business culture, particularly in the context of automotive. Automotive is a 100% open sector, which allows 100% FDI, foreign direct investment. You can have your 100% ownership in a company that you want to set up in India. The typically setting up a private limited company or LLC takes between 3 to 5 days, and there are certain applications, etc., have to be filled up, which are almost all of them are online now, and you get your certificate of registration along with your tax number, etc. And all the filings, etc., are largely online now, and they are very, very, I would say, customer friendly. Taxation, yes, I think still we have the VAT, what we call GST, the General Service and Taxation, wherein all the goods, manufactured goods and services that you provide, they need to be taxed at a certain amount. So there is a, I would say, it still needs a little bit of refinement in terms of procedures and processes and filings, etc. So if you have a good chartered accountant or company secretary, they can take care of these. So overall, I would say we are much better placed today than few decades earlier. When I used to work in the early stages of my career. So those most of those complexities have gone, but yes, we still need to do work. So this is as far as the regulatory side of it is
If
concerned.
if I may ask a question, um,
Yeah.
I understand that there are powerful states within India. Um, does the federal versus state add any complexity, or is all of this occurring more at a federal level? For example, in the United States, you have one country but 50 states, but each of the 50 states has differing regulations and different laws, and that adds some complexity to companies coming in.
See, India is a federal country. We are a combination of states. We have 22 states, and there are some union territories, etc. So the regulations, there are central rules which apply to all the states. There are certain rules, certain category of rules. For example, deciding whether automotive is a open sector or not is the job of the central government. They will decide, and they can pass a law. And for example, sectors like nuclear and defense and some aerospace, etc., are restricted. Wherein the foreign companies cannot have a major shareholding, which is quite understandable because a lot of it deals with the national security, for example, or nuclear power, right? So those are kind of the list, or there is a list of items where central government will deal, and then there are a certain list of items where the state government is empowered to deal with. They can pass a law, and they can give, for example, if you approach a state like Tamil Nadu, which is in the south, where Hyundai has set up the facility, Renault Nissan has the facility, and BMW and several others. A very, very progressive state, and Maharashtra in the west. So that these states are empowered to give tax exemptions, for example, or any subsidy or any other benefit. For example, they can allocate free land, a parcel of land of maybe 200, 300 acres that you wish to have for your project. And the state government is empowered to give you these facilities, these subsidies, these financial as well as fiscal benefits. So that's how India works. So there are certain items which the central government controls. There are certain items which the state government controls, and there is something called concurrent list, where both the central as well as the state have a role to play. So that's how our constitution is structured, John.
Okay, no, fascinating. It's multi-layered, which is quite interesting,
Yeah.
and it's
Yes.
also good to see that the states have, let's say, a little bit of competition, I would say, between them for securing
Yes.
some of those investment partners. You mentioned the next factor, which is a challenge in India, was technology. What
Yes.
technology are you referring to there?
Yeah, that's a very interesting discussion, John. And when you talk of technology in the context of automotive industry, you see the auto industry is moving exponentially on the technology curve. As we know that a lot of it is driven by electric vehicles, which is essentially a change of fuel, from whether it was gasoline or diesel or CNG. So now we have this alternate fuel, which is the battery. So the fuel mix, again, in the battery, you want to have a the full battery, or you want to have a hybrid, plug-in, etc., are different categories. And this is one part of the technology which has evolved, and spearheaded by Tesla, as we all know. And the second aspect of technology, which has very, very rapidly evolved, and it's still evolving and developing at a exponential pace, is the software side of the vehicle. So software cuts across all the layers of automotive, the components, the system, the subsystems, and the full vehicle itself, and also going beyond the vehicle. You have various services today wherein you're connected, and for example, you're making payments, using your connecting through your vehicle. Then the data that your car is collecting and processing, and then the OEMs are able to monetize the data, and also the OTAs, the software updates, which is again a new monetization aspect which is developed. So, EV being a new vehicle, sort of fast track these technologies. So, in the context of Indian automotive industry, a lot of it is yet to come. Let's talk about electrification and as a technology. EVs in
Yes.
India started about 6, 7 years ago, mostly through the Chinese imports, and a lot of traders or importers imported these low-end vehicles, the scooters and three-wheelers, and put them in the market, and they were just out there to make quick money. Just to give you a context of it, there were more than 400 brands of electric scooters and three wheelers running in India, more than 400. So
That's an
obviously they were
incredible
not
number.
OEMs. Yeah. Obviously they were not manufacturers, or they were not OEMs. They were simply traders. They were buying this low end stuff from China, and selling it here. You know, just to give you an idea, typically a scooter, a two wheeler in India, it sells for about 1,000 US dollars. So they will typically buy it at maybe 600 700 dollar, and make the money, make a quick profit and sell it. So that was the mode, and then now is the time when the serious OEMs like Bajaj, which is a big two-wheeler company, even Honda, they have come up with their designed and developed and technology based product scooters. Okay, so this is a challenge, whether you want to go with a trading mindset, you want to import from Europe or US and you want to sell here, or you want to develop it for the Indian market. So this is a piece of the puzzle that many companies miss, and then they find it hard to compete with the local makers or giants like Maruti, Suzuki, and Hyundai, etc., that I mentioned. So I think the technology challenge is in two segments. One is that, do you want to play in this new technology space, and how do you want to play? Uh, is Do you want to really bring something like a fully autonomous car to India? Is that the right technology strategy for you, or you want to use the technology and customize and make it something which is suitable for India? That's the one segment of the technology problem, and the second segment would be making it cost effective. I believe that technology is the answer to this whole cost competitiveness, uh, whereas people think it otherwise. They tend to think that if I bring a high technology product, or I put in technology on a higher level, it will become expensive. But most of the time, it doesn't work that way. If you engineer your vehicle, you use the technology in the right way, then I think you have a if you have a good technology product at the right price. So that's the sort of technology complexity or technology problem that you need to solve. Don't just copy paste something from Europe or US or some other part of the world and bring it here and think that it will sell because it's a huge market. Yes, the market is huge, but the market is also very sensitive in terms of what it wants, what the customer wants, at what price, what features, what brand, what after sale, etc., etc. So I think technology challenge is something which needs to be studied deeply by the companies who want to come here, and then find your own solution to it. That's where it's going to work. That's my view.
Do you find, thinking about the customer for a moment, or consumer requirements, is it is the typical Indian consumer very educated when they shop for vehicles? You hear stories of the German customers who read endlessly about the product before finally placing an order. Do the Indian customers educate themselves highly on the product as well, or do they come into the showroom looking to be educated?
Yeah, John, it's a interesting question. You see, we have to segment the customer on the product side. For example, somebody who buys a three wheeler. Okay, now a three wheeler, or whether it's a rickshaw or a cargo carrying vehicle. Now it's a commercial vehicle. It's not a personal vehicle, right? He's going to use it to earn money out of it. So he has to run it, let's say, about 10 to 12 hours a day, and make enough money so that he can pay the the interest on the borrowing that he has taken, for a loan that he has taken for that vehicle, and meet all his expenses, whether it is fuel or electric charging, or if he has a driver salary of that person, and then take back some money home, right? So that is how the equation works here. Per day, in a day, he needs to earn about 1000 rupees. Okay, so that's the kind of where yeah. Uh, So that's so when he comes to the showroom, and he wants to buy a vehicle, he has to be absolutely sure that that vehicle will run flawlessly without getting into any maintenance or issues, or something breaking down, that sort of issues. And it must stay with him in that condition, so that he's able to earn that 1,000 rupees, which is about 12 to 13 US dollars a day, for 5 years at least, 4 to 5 years, during which he is going to earn enough money to pay back his loans and meet all his expenses, as well as save enough money to buy another vehicle. Okay, so that's like a earning member of the family for him. So when he does that, for him it's a very important decision to make, whether he's going to buy Bajaj three wheeler, or TVS three wheeler, or Mahindra, or Piaggio, or some of the newcomers like Omega. So he is pretty well informed, and today it's a digital age. You can Google anything. Plus they have their own WhatsApp groups through which they chat. They take feedback from their peers, their group members, as to how is the new vehicle, for example, Omega. How is the Omega vehicle doing? Does it break down on the road, or you have had any problem with charging, or is the battery good enough after 2 years, etc. So I would say that they are very highly informed in this segment. So three wheeler. Whereas go to the other segment, like buying a car. Now car is a aspirational purchase in India. You aspire to have a car. The car ownership in India is still at a very, very low level compared to the global standards. We still are just about 20 people, 20 out of 1,000 own cars, whereas in global economies, it's probably 700, 800 out of 1,000 own cars. So car ownership is fairly low even today in India, even though we have almost 3.5 million cars produced every year. So what happens is, somebody who is going to buy the first car, okay, for him. So he's probably around 25, 27-year old kid out of his graduation. Then he has a job, and he's earning enough to buy a car, which typically costs about let's say about 500,000 Indian rupees. Uh, so in that bracket, if he's going to buy a car, obviously he's going to do a lot of research, and also have a brand, pick up a brand that appeals to him. So as I said, 42% is market share of Suzuki. So if you go to Suzuki now, Suzuki offers a choice of maybe about 50 cars. So it's more of a rejection problem than a selection problem. You have to reject
Yeah.
49 and buy one car out of that full product basket. So typically now the data shows in the family, and Indians are a still quite close knit family, and in the family, the decision makers or decision influencers are the young people, somewhere around 15, 17-year old kids, because they are much better informed than the father or the mother about which car, what features, how does it look, how does it behave, etc. And they have something to show to their friends. So that's how the decisions get influenced. That okay, I don't want to buy a Suzuki because it's seen as a bit of a low end thing. I'll buy a Honda, for example. So the 15-year-old kid will influence, and the father who is going to write the check of maybe about 8,000 or $10,000, that I don't want a Suzuki because my school friends are not going to like if I travel that. So I need probably a Toyota. Um, so the answer to your question is, I think the awareness, the knowledge of car, though in different segments, is at different levels. In the lower segment, where it is a money earner, He is very well informed of how it behaves, what is the technology behind it on the over a period of time, whether it lasts enough for him. Whereas in a higher segment like car, it's more about the visual appeal, the brand, how it looks, and what kind of features it has, etc. Not so much about how the engine behaves, or whether you have a CRDI or a what kind of
Yes,
ECU
yes.
you have, right? So that's how it is. It works. Yeah.
So then you also pointed out that economics plays into this. Were you talking about household economics, or are you talking about the general economy?
You see, in the context of the newcomers, new entries, new companies who are entering India, you need to understand the Indian socio-economic structure. Okay, what I mean is economy in the city is vastly different from economy of the semi-urban or rural areas of India. Cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, typically the earning capacity of individuals is high because the cities offer a lot of economic opportunities in terms of jobs, in terms of businesses, and the work that you can find here, as compared to some of the smaller cities, like we call them tier one or tier two cities. Uh, so that's how the economic structure of our country is. Um, and now you need to position your product so that you are what are you targeting? Are you targeting a high end car, for example? Now high end car, obviously you have to target these metros, these five six bigger cities like Delhi, Mumbai, etc. Or if you are targeting a slightly lesser variant of the car, then you can sell it in the other areas of the country. So you can't have one size fit all in India. That's the mistake that many companies make. The reason Maruti Suzuki is successful is that they have such a huge, big basket of products and so many variants for the entire mass market. They start with 300,000 rupees and they go up to 3 million rupees. You see, so that's a huge band. Okay, and they target the right customer, right price with their product. So I think in India the economics work in a little different because the country is developing, and per capita income of India is still very low. It's just about 2,200 US dollars per capita, even though the country is about $4 trillion economy, but because the population is so high, the per capita income is high. The income disparity is also very high. Almost 60% or probably 70% of the earners are just about 1% of the population. So that income disparity, the income band that Indian population resides in, that needs to be understood by the companies who want to do business here, and don't just bring any standard off the shelf product from your stable in the US or Europe, uh, and uh, and imagine that it will sell here, because it's not going to work that way.
That's very interesting to understand, which of course leads us then almost directly into the human aspects. You mentioned human resources and the topic of the entire podcast, culture. What role does that play in the auto industry in India from your perspective?
Yeah, John, I think out of all the other factors that we mentioned, I think human resource or human aspect and the whole socio-cultural aspect of India is the most important, according to me. And I've seen companies fail, um, having great products, having great technologies and massive power, but they could not figure out the socio-cultural aspect of India. GM, as you know, failed here. Ford backed up from here. Nokia could not succeed here. On the other side of it is Japanese company Suzuki makes enormous amount of money here. They are now setting up a new facility, new plant, which is almost ready, and the capacity is 4 million cars a year. Today, the entire Indian car industry is less than 4 million. Maruti Suzuki itself wants to do 4 million. So that's the kind of growth they forecast, that yes, India is going to become a 8 or 10 million car market in the next 5 to 6 years. Uh, Korean companies, Samsung, LG, Hyundai, they make huge amount of money. Uh, so, on one side we have some classic failures, and the other side we have stupendous success, and companies keep growing, keep putting in money here. So the question is, what makes them succeed and the other side fail miserably? I think the answer is the Japanese, they studied India very, very in detail. They have to sort of deep the social aspect of it, how Indians live, what do they eat, how much they save, how they make purchase decisions, and so on and so forth. And also when it comes to work, because you have to work with the Indian talent here, you have to hire people here, and you understand the way, for example, a 22-year-old kid who is just out of his college, how is he going to adapt to working in your company? Because they are very talented. They are, as an individual, I think Indians are very highly talented individuals. But there are issues. Indians find it very difficult to work in teams. So we need to teach them, team working, project management, time management. These are the areas where we need to teach, and we need to teach them like school kids, and that's where I used to do, and that is the reason why Suzuki is so successful, Honda is so successful, Toyota is so successful, and GM and Ford could not, because somewhere they implanted their European style, or let's say Germans, they have a very straightforward way of working. They each guy will do his individual job, individual work that has been told to him or assigned to him, and nobody will bother him. Reminding is is very offensive if you remind somebody. Whereas in
Yes.
Indian culture, typically, if you do not remind somebody, then you can be sure the work will not get done. That's the typical way the Indian individual works. Now, in the industry, it can't be that way, that you remind somebody every day. Then you will have to have a reminding department in the company. So the way to change that behavior aspect is teach these individuals, these young people, that hey, in the industry there is something called program management, there is something called time management, there is something called resource management, right? If car has to be launched, then it has to be done in a particular day. That day is fixed, the milestones are fixed, the events are fixed, okay, prior to that car. So that is where I think the Japanese and the Koreans did very well, teaching and training and retraining and reskilling, etc. Whereas the other companies, they could not do it. So I think this whole socio-cultural and behavior aspect of Indian people needs a very, very deep study and understanding.
And that's exactly what this entire podcast is about, is that success or failure is often predicated on a company's approach to working with local cultures. I think this is a great point that you've just made. Now, these are great insights on the culture. As we near the end of the episode, I wanted to give you the opportunity to, kind of summarize from your side, perhaps some of the key points that you wanted to close with.
Yes, John. I think I kind of gave you an overview of what India is. Then we also delved a little deeper micro side of it, and how the Indian industry works, and what are the kind of challenges or issues that you face or you're likely to have. I would just say that these are not insurmountable issues or challenges, and this is very natural for any company. If you're based out of Europe or US or any other part of the world, that you are looking at India, then this is the right time. The opportunities are humongous in the context of the new age automotive industry. Even though the powerful companies I mentioned, Suzuki or Hyundai or Kia, etc., are there, but that I personally I think that the success of past does not guarantee success of your future. And I think the in the new age of automotive era that we are witnessing today, whether it is led by electric vehicles or software defined vehicles or any other new fuel led vehicle. I think this is the era where if you have a technology, and many of the new startups that we keep seeing, and having a great technology product, based out of US or Europe. I think this is the time to come to India and disrupt this market. I believe that only startups have that power to disrupt, and it's been seen time and again. Disney was not worried about Netflix. Walmart was not worried about Amazon, but they did it. I think this is something which can be done in India, and with a bit of a careful planning. And this is where we are here. We are a group of seasoned professionals, and we work with you, and we help you, and we ensure you settle down here and navigate through all these minor issues that we just mentioned. And we'll be very happy to handhold any of you here, and ensure that you have the right partnerships in place to avail these huge opportunities on Indian market. I think today, just to wrap up, the market is massive, as we mentioned, close to about 400, 500 billion US dollars, and also the opportunities to export from India are huge, and we are seeing this. Lot of jobs are moving. Not only from US and Europe, but also from China, because the customer out there is looking for China plus one strategy, and this is where India comes in very, very well placed on the opportunity pyramid. And I think this would be a great opportunity for you guys to look at the cost competitive advantages that India offers to back to export to your country. And this is where we can support you, we can work with you as part of you, and we can ensure that you have great success. So that's all from my side, John, and I'd be more than happy to answer any specific questions from any of your viewers or listeners if they have. And my homepage is www.admprime.co.in, and I am the founder and managing director of the company. And me and my team would be more than happy to welcome any of you at whatever stage of your business are you in. If you are looking to evaluate, looking to have a market study or dipstick study or whatever, we're more than happy to work with you. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you for sharing the insights into the market and where the opportunities lie and how to navigate those. Thank you also for sharing the information about your company and how you're able to help your clients enter into the Indian market. I'll make sure that some of the appropriate contact information is in the show notes in the podcast as well. So thank you again for joining us today. And I think with that, I'm going to wrap up the episode. So to our listeners, thank you very much for joining today on the Auto Ethnographer. I hope that you enjoyed our small trip to India and got a lot out of the podcast with regards to how to enter the market, how the culture works, and how success can be found or lost if the wrong approach is taken. Until next week, keep on driving. Thank you for joining us on today's journey. Please remember to like and subscribe to the Auto Ethnographer and leave us a rating or comment. For more information, visit our website at auto-ethnographer.com. You can also follow on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.